Okay, well, we have much to discuss, so I'm going to go ahead and start. So, hello everyone. I'm Valerie Taylor, and I'm the CEO and president of Commanded. I'm also a researcher at Argonne National Laboratory, where I lead the Mathematics and Computer Science Division. And so it is my wonderful pleasure to welcome you to the May Commanded webinar that here we're focused on the career journey to technical leadership in the hot area of cybersecurity. I mean, it's a hot topic right now. And so today's webinar speaker is Dr. Evette Maynard-Noel with the U.S. Department of Homeland Security. So I can say Dr. E has over 30 years of experience in cybersecurity oversight, as well as the design of innovative cybersecurity practices. So it is a pleasure to have Dr. E here today talking with us. And so Dr. E serves in the Office of the Information Officer at the Cybersecurity and Information Security Agency, or CISA. And so, and so
Super.
it's a pleasure to have you here. And
Thank-
oh, go ahead.
No, I was just saying thank you.
Yes. And as we talk about, AI, and I get all excited about the use of AI in science, but we also note that there are also malicious uses of AI as well, in which it really makes the topic cybersecurity so very important. So let's go ahead and jump into this conversation. So let's start with your current position with Cybersecurity and Infrastructure Security Agency. And so
Mhm.
let's start with first, so that we're all on the same page, if you can provide a definition of cybersecurity, that would be great.
Okay. So my definition of cybersecurity is about the protection of computers, networks, systems, devices, because we all got some, the data, the information, and all of that from like unauthorized access, damage, threats, theft, and that's whether it's intentional or unintentional. So that's kind of how I wrap it up in a bow.
Okay. And if you can elaborate on, um, and that is in terms of your current position, what are your responsibilities that's associated with that position? It would be good. And if you could tell us a little bit more about, do we say CISA or CISA? That would be
CISA.
great. CISA. Thank you.
Uh-huh. 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 Um, so man, I mean, because I've been here 19 years. So it's like not long after the whole DHS startup. Um, and I've kind of evolved from one place to the other. So my background has been in all types of security. Just I started as a security administrator, but when I got to what was then called Infrastructure Analysis and Infrastructure Protection, to National Protection and Programs Directorate, to what is now called CISA. So it's the same agency, we just had different names. I was more in the risk and compliance area. So most of what I did there, and I kind of, still have a hand in it, was the protection of the systems from the ground up, all the way through disposal. Whether it was a financial system, infrastructure protection type system, something running cyber or what have you, there's a process of certification and accreditation that my team would work on to make sure that that system complied with all of the checks and balances, all of the controls were taken care of, and it was certified secure. So that's kind of where my background is and some of what I've done in the last several years. I have moved into to different areas. I've done knowledge management and knowledge management systems, even those secure, capturing the knowledge and protecting all of that. Protecting the ins and outs is another thing. I've also worked in the policy and governance piece. Um, and currently, I'm doing a lot more with the people aspect of it. And I'm running the cybersecurity. Well, we're getting it up and running. Matter of fact, we've done a kickoff and we're getting going. So it's the cybersecurity training. So we're bringing people from the entry all the way up until the senior executives to get them in the security, just basic security, advanced security, AI, and cloud training.
Wow. Okay. That's so it's really extensive. So if you could so if you could highlight, let's say, some of what you found to be some of the top, I would go major cybersecurity challenges that you've addressed, let's say within the last 5 years, we'll put a time frame on it, or even it could be longer than that. But if you could talk about some of
I
the,
probably will. I talk fast, so I'll try to be mindful of that. So the organization itself is cybersecurity and infrastructure security agencies. So our focus is on protecting critical infrastructure, securing AI, operational technology systems. The systems that kind of interact with the physical world, the ones that control all kinds of machinery, industrial processes, and then, of course, with all of that, it's to track the protection against malicious threats. It is responding to specific types of malware threats. We do emergency directives for government, and we engage with private sector, private and other public sector. And we maintain those partnerships that help support stakeholders in the critical infrastructure areas, state, local, tribal, territorial governments, and the like.
okay, so when you talk about critical infrastructure, if you could elaborate what that entails, because sometimes when you say infrastructure, you come first thing that may come to mind may be bridges or whatever, but that
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm,
infrastructure. But when you start to think about the infrastructure, like your transportation systems, that includes so much automation that the security around those transportation systems, we take it for granted, that
mm-hmm,
trains will run and we take it for granted in some cases with cars and that we'll have the
mm-hmm.
connectivity. But if you could talk through, let's say, around critical infrastructure, what are some of the particular issues that you've had to address in that space around the critical infrastructure, just to have a concrete example?
So I guess in what we do is CISA, right? So we're the partners. We don't necessarily do those things, but we create, certain mechanisms, we create certain processes, we have people with the expertise. So a lot of it, you'll see, boots on the ground with bridges and dams,
Okay.
um, the
Mm.
election security. Okay, because that is an infrastructure that people really don't think is an infrastructure, but it is. Um, uh,
So,
what else? Financial, the
uh,
financial piece of it. Again, it's all the checks and balances, the people and processes, the technology, the infrastructure, all of those pieces together. And anytime there's something major going on in the world, everything is heightened. If you and you can kind of see that right now with what's going on.
right.
So every people are buzzing where I am. They're out in the field. They are working in. So we have regions around the country. There are 10 different regions around the country, and we've got people deployed in those regions, people who live in those regions, people who are working with all pieces of critical infrastructure. And given everything going on with a lot of places with their midterms and other elections coming up, there's a whole lot of emphasis in that area. So our people are boots on the ground supporting assessments and reviews and providing guidance and just kind of, helping them check off the things that they need to do that they have done, and making sure they have those things in place. So there's a lot of that going on right now. I can pretty much attest to that.
Okay, so thank you, because about the election, that really makes it concrete, and it is something that we can all relate to currently, because you have primaries going on and then upcoming midterm elections. But in any region, there are always elections going on, and yes, and you take for granted that that infrastructure will be in place, will
Right.
be, operational during the work hours, et cetera. So. Thank you. So now let's talk a little bit about your experiences and interest. I guess if you could elaborate on your experiences, that led to your current position.
Ooh, I took a lot of twists and turns to get here. I did. Oh my gosh. So ironically, when I was in high school 100 years ago, um, I got my very first job, um, and it was in the computer division of the Internal Revenue Service. I was a clerk. We actually had a PC, and a lot of the one PC, most everything else was terminals, but a lot of that we did, helping to process returns, not me per se, but the organization did. And I remember us connecting to Martin Marietta, the mainframe in Florida. Um, so, so that's my earliest recollection. And then you go forward about a decade or so. I decided to change careers. That wasn't really a career; that was a job. But I decided to get into, of all things, the automobile business. That's a story for another day. However, I bought my
Okay.
first PC. I bought my first PC, and I found myself staying up all night, like figuring it out, learning new things. I just kind of got hooked. I mean, back then we had America Online and CompuServe.
Oh, I remember. I remember.
Okay. So I got so interested, I decided I want to learn this. I really do. And I decided to pack up, come to Georgia because I had family here, move in with them, and go to school full time. And my major was information systems because that's what they called it back then.
Yes.
Um, I got a part-time job in a car dealership. And when I graduated, the guy said, "Won't you stay here and work for me as my system administrator?" I'm like, "Okay,
Yeah.
a full-time job right out of college." Okay. And I did that for about 5 years. And then I asked for a raise. This is important at the end, toward the end, but I asked for this raise. And it was the very first crucial conversation of my career. He said, "Evette, you do great work and I appreciate you. And one day you're going to get, your knowledge and everything is going to make you bigger than what we have to offer here." And I was like, that was a way to let a person down. But he gave me a raise, right?
Oh,
Yes, he did. But it made me think. It made me think. So I was there for a little bit longer, and I started putting feelers out for jobs. I started applying for different jobs in technology, and I applied for a land engineer's position. Now, mind you, I would run cables in the ceiling and work their Unix machine and set up their local area and wide area networks. I did that, but I wasn't necessarily a land engineer. And I applied for this job. And she interviewed me. 2 weeks later, she called me. She said, "Evette, I hired somebody else for that job." And I'm like, "You called me to tell me no?" But she said, "But I have a security administrator job. Would you be interested?" And I said, "Sure." And I took that job. And I learned so much. And then a few years into that, the CISO for another state agency said, "What would it take for you to come work for me?" But I had gotten comfortable. I didn't want
right.
to leave, right? I didn't want to leave. Because I was literally doing, ground up security, building and doing and protecting, and it was awesome. And he said, well, what's it going to take? And I said, a 37% raise. I wanted to make him say no because I was comfortable, right?
Mhm.
He got me the 37% raise, and I had no choice but to take that job. I had no choice but to take that job.
He knew you had so much to offer.
Oh my goodness. But it
That's
was so, of course, I didn't know at the time because, I just didn't know. But when I looked back, I realized how important that was because I learned a lot of things. I got more into doing more managing of processes, helping, working with the state agency in all of their, again, continuity. I built their continuity program up. And doing policies and risk frameworks. So that was great. But a couple of years into that, my father got sick, and he was living here in Georgia with me, and we decided we needed to take him back to DC, a more familiar place. And my boss knew this, and he happened to be in Florida. Now we live in Georgia.
right.
I needed to get to DC, and he was in Florida. He happened to be at a meeting with the person who was the CISO for the agency I work for now. That
Oh,
was, and he told her about my situation. And I guess it was about a month later or so, I was working for her in DC.
wow. Things
And
have a way. Yes.
that was 19 years ago. And that's the agency that I work at now. And it
Wow.
was it was because of a crucial conversation. Me jumping out of my comfort zone um, and learning more. Now, in the very beginning, I was very basic in security. Matter of fact, they didn't even call it cyber then. It was information security, right? Um, Very basic. And with more education, because I went on to get a master's degree and, of course, my PhD. Um, I got to the crux of it. I did a lot more in the last several years. I did a lot more leading of people than doing the actual work. But at the crux of it, we all are responsible. At CISA, we are all responsible for cyber, no matter what we do. And
Right.
had it not been, like I said, for that crucial conversation, and me taking the route that I did, I wouldn't be here now. Or as my mom used to say, if you haven't left when you did, you wouldn't be here now. That was her saying, and I
Right.
fully believe that.
Yeah, so like you said, getting out of your comfort zone and taking that risk. Yes. And and I want to spend a little time on that area. So if you could talk through, when you took that position where, as a security admin, I guess, so it was going outside of your comfort zone, but what did you do to become comfortable in that position?
Oh, it was all immersion. It was literally all being immersed in it. Whenever somebody said I'm going to do such, I'm like, can I go?
Okay.
Can I watch? Can I do? I went and in those positions, the ability to get training was important, not just to reinforce what I already knew, but to learn new skills, get new, about new tools or processes or what have you. I then, started my pathways toward advanced degrees. Um, I I can I can probably also say that being involved with organizations, being able to, like, when in 2017, if you will, attending the Tapia conference, attending Grace Hopper or WESIS, being involved with other computing societies and meeting those people who do the type of work that I was interested in or that I was doing. Um, Having all of those types of things happen in my life. It made all the difference in the world.
Okay. Okay. So finding that community where you can have those conversations, learn from each other, leverage from each other,
Absolutely.
and share. Yes.
Absolutely. Big
Yeah.
proponent of not matter of fact, for there was a period in my CISA career where I was in charge of knowledge management. So I have a big affinity for knowledge sharing, not just data and information sharing, but knowledge sharing. It is very important.
Yes, indeed. Indeed. So let's talk a little bit about this is good information. And I want to ask one more question and then I'm gonna look over to see if there are questions from the audience. So this
Mhm.
gives you a heads up to feel free to put questions in chat or have your question ready. So here we hear a great deal about AI, either helping to identify vulnerabilities. Like for example, everybody's been hearing about Anthropic, the mythos that's not released to the public, but available to certain customers to help identify vulnerabilities with software. So you hear about that, but you also hear about AI being used in malicious ways. And so, we welcome your thoughts on how AI is being used in both ways, in terms of identifying security vulnerabilities, as well as, your experience with AI, let's say, making your job harder, in terms of the malicious use. So you start wherever you would like.
Okay, well, I very much appreciate that question. I really like the question. Um, so it sort of gets to the part where the promises of AI, right? And the tension folks have about AI and cybersecurity. Big time. So, from a defensive perspective, it's still going to come down to your prompting and your training your AI, to find vulnerabilities and shifting from that periodic manual review to some type of continuous intelligent analysis. I think that's probably the best way to describe that. So it's important in the analysis of the code, using the tools that can truly recognize those patterns that are associated with, say, insecure coding practices, because a lot of times it's not just that it's being done maliciously. Sometimes it's done on accident, and was not intentional. But trying to find those things in real time, and now developers can catch those issues, in writing, right when they're going through it and testing, offline or what have you, before it gets into deployment. We feel that that's a big thing that one needs to take a look at. Instead of kind of rushing through to get it out the door, is taking the time to make sure that they got it right versus going back and fixing not only that, but everything that it broke.
Right. Oh, that.
That yeah, that's a big worry, right? I've seen that happen, years ago, like when we first started applying, security controls to things. People were like, "Did you test this out?" Then they broke it, and then it just completely crashed everything. And so we got to think about those things too. It's not just people trying to get in. Sometimes it's us trying to do the right thing, but we didn't take the extra step to make sure it worked, right? Um, yeah. So, most of my career, I think, like I said, I've been in risk and compliance space. I have been in risk and compliance, but I love all the effort out there where they're trying to use AI to help prioritize risk, right? Um, Instead of treating all vulnerabilities equally, right? There is, some cases where AI can analyze threat intelligence and kind of figure out the weaknesses, and find out which one of those are going to be most likely exploited. Um, it may take a little time in the beginning to kind of program those things in and, do your prompting and get that right. But it will save a whole lot of time, effort, money, and aggravation in the long run if one does that extra work up front. So that's a key thing that I found that is most important when we're talking about, AI, and security vulnerabilities, and getting rid of the threats out there. Just making sure they prioritize getting the testing done up front before it's released.
Okay. Okay. And I guess related to this question, and I'm just about to go to the chat too, but related to this question of doing this risk analysis, how, I guess, are there certain I guess, criteria that you use to identify when you've done sufficient risk analysis or when more is needed in terms of that evaluation, you know?
That's a really good one and sort of hard. So, one people will always look at what we've done in the past, right? What worked for us in the past? Is it similar to what we're doing now? Is up to the point where everything is similar? Is it truly similar? And then once we start changing everything, we kind of do the incremental, right? Do everything incrementally. That way you can back out if something doesn't work right. And prayerfully, as they say, get the desired results. In some cases, one has to scrap everything they just did and start over from scratch. You know, it's still the human factor in a lot of that because again, while a lot of things are changing as they're going down through it, it's where we start once we start with something good, we can generally keep it going unless somebody messes something in the middle. But it's watching that and knowing exactly what you're looking for, and if the slightest, I mean, yeah, absolutely, the slightest result is not that's different than what you want, we got to go back and look at what we either didn't do right, or we excluded. And so
Okay.
there's yeah,
Oh,
it's very important, especially for I guess the sensitivity and the criticality of either the data, the systems, or even the mission that we're all working on.
right. So, oh, that's a good point. So, utilizing past experiences of what worked well and was secure and using that as a baseline to then go from there.
Because a lot of what we're doing, it was a manual process in the beginning, and we knew that while it might have taken forever, we knew the results at these particular steps, and then the final results. What's different?
Right.
If we got halfway through and everything was right, and then all of a sudden the next several steps change, we go back to where everything was right. And so and then once they get the thing that they want, move forward with that. But if the slightest thing is different, one has to find out what we did or what we didn't do that turned out this result.
Okay.
Think
Okay.
about your tax returns, right? Think about your I'm not IRS, but I think about the one thing that people think about it. That's their money. Think about
Right.
that.
Right. But if my return goes up, I'm going, hey, that was good. But yes. But here, let's go to the question. So I think it's is it Ogichi? And I may be saying it wrong. If you want to unmute and state your question, or if you want us to ask your question.
Oh, hi, good afternoon, and thank you, Dr. Maynard-Noel. Did I say that
Yeah,
right? For your
yes.
time. Very much appreciated. So, I was very interested in the AI app security question,
Mhm.
and I know you answered it to some extent with prompt engineering and all that, but I feel like, it would be nice to have more depth into how to incorporate security in the design of applications. In other words, having a more proactive approach than a reactive approach. So, how are you leaders in the public sector leading with the application security application developers in incorporating security into the development? What tools, what frameworks out there help in the management of application security? Because this is an area that I'm interested in moving into in leadership.
That
Okay.
is an amazing question. So several pieces of that. I will say up front, I do not represent all of government. So the organization I work for, we are partners with with all of the federal agencies, but every particular agency, while they are following all of the standard federal, guidelines, if you will, they're running their ship the way they run their ship. And I am not, it's like full disclosure, I am not the CIO. I am not app dev. I am part of the CIO senior team in those areas. But aside from what I've answered, I probably cannot fully answer your question. I would like your question in writing. I would like your email address because I'll get it for you
Sure.
if that's
Thank
okay
you
with
so
you.
much. Yeah,
Oh
I
yeah,
can.
so I can tell you what I can tell you is I work for an amazing organization. I absolutely do. We have some of the best minds, the best technologists, the best managers, the best everything. I love where I work. That's evident by the 19 years I've been there. Um, if you ask the question, somebody will run it down for me.
Okay.
All right, thank you. I'll provide my email address. I think
Thank
I'm
you.
connected with you on LinkedIn, so I'll send a message. I'll send my
Do
email
that.
address to you on LinkedIn.
That way I can just go and put it all in there. And that way I can just copy and paste and put it right there and say, look, I need you to answer this question.
All right, thank you. I appreciate that.
Thank you. And let's see, and we have a lot more questions. So Taran, I think was next. And so Taran, I'm going to ask if you could, because of the number of questions, if you could keep it to one question, your top question that you want.
Yes. Hi, am I audible?
You
Yes.
are?
Yes. Hi, hello everyone. So I am an international student currently doing my master's in cybersecurity from Nova Southeastern University. And well, my top question is, since I said I'm an international student, which means that I'm not a US citizen. So according to you, how difficult it would be or how easy it is for someone who is not a citizen of the United States to get into the field of cybersecurity? Because I know that we have to deal with a lot of confidentiality, integrity, and availability. So do you think it is easy for someone who is not a US citizen to get his first internship or a first full-time job in cybersecurity? And also, let's just say that if you're a hiring manager, what kind of entry-level cybersecurity roles do you recommend for someone who is just starting out in cybersecurity, or what are like the basic certifications, or what kind of personal projects that he or she has to put onto their resume to get their first gig?
Well, I can probably answer this one. But first, I'm going to start with a question to you. Did you say Nova Southeastern?
Yeah.
Go Sharks.
Oh, go.
I did.
Hi, go Sharks. Yeah,
Go Sharks. Did my
go
PhD
Sharks.
there. So we'll have to talk about that too at some point.
Yeah.
Connect with me on LinkedIn. So being an international student, there are internships out there. How without getting into the whole State Department thing, but there is something that folks have to do in order to make sure that they can work in the United States. And generally, it's a matter of and this is just from what I know. This is not the written rules or anything. But this is just what I know of because I've have friends that are international and have done something similar. But they get sponsorship. And
Mm-hmm.
there are companies that will do that. I
Mm-hmm.
can't tell you, all of the ones that do, but I know that these people that I know that are international and have been and have gotten jobs and internships and such, being sponsored by organizations, found these people by one reaching out, by showing up at these wonderful technology conferences. Tappy is coming soon.
Yes.
And talking to people there. And a lot of times these companies will tell you what you need to do.
Mm-hmm.
And some of them are in the business of sponsoring students.
Okay.
And it is very important to talk to everybody.
Okay. Yeah. Yeah, I know that the networking is key. Also, I was wondering if you can give me any suggestions about the certification that I need to have, or like, the personal projects that I need to put on my resume to get my first internship or something like that.
Security Plus is a good one to start with.
Oh, I already have that certification. Okay. Yeah.
Okay. CISSP,
No, I don't have that CISSP.
consider that one.
Okay.
And are you looking what's your specialty? What are you looking in?
So I
What are you
was
interested
looking
in?
So I was looking at stock analyst roles because I was talking to one of my professors, Dr. Levy, and then he told me that since you don't have, I know, I love
I
him
love
so much.
Yair. He's
I love him.
great.
Yeah, I have this personal relationship with Dr. Levy. He always used to guide me, and he told me that since you don't have any experience in cybersecurity, and then he told me to get a CompTIA Security Plus certification, which I did.
Hmm.
And then the
Hmm.
second, he told me that he also told me to put some personal projects on resume. And then I have one project for now, but then I'm working on other project as well. And he told me to target for SOC analyst roles because you don't really have any experience right now. He told me that getting your first full-time job as a SOC analyst would actually be a really good be a good part or a good starting point for your career. So that's what I'm looking at as a SOC
That's
analyst.
that's excellent. That's excellent because that'll start putting you in if you're interested in that defensive cyber type
Yeah,
of
yeah.
role. And there's so many things you can do there. I mean, with the tools, the techniques, the monitoring, all of that. Definitely. Which program are you in at Nova? Master's cyber, master's or PhD or undergrad?
Masters in cybersecurity management.
Okay, okay. Definitely, look at advancing in your certifications in that particular area of training. Take a look at things in the defensive cyber ops to kind of
Mm-hmm.
shore up those pieces right there, because that'll move you more from just being a SOC analyst to doing other things too.
All right, all right. Thank you so much, Dr. Evette. I will text you on LinkedIn and I'll be in touch with you.
Okay, great. Thanks for the
Sure.
question.
Thank you.
Thank you, Tyrone. Next, we have Deborah.
Hi, Dr. Taylor and Yvette. Yvette, my Wiss's sister. I had you talk a lot about the infrastructure and all that. I just wanted to see whether you do have some information more of what was actually already asked by the previous person. I don't remember what was her name. Is it Ungechi? Yeah, she was asking almost the same question I was asking, and that is about the back end. You know how you prepare all those applications before they ever come
Hmm.
to the
Hmm.
to the form forward. And by the way, I actually know the answer, but I just wanted you to put in a little bit of that because I do my research is in secure programming, so it's more on that
Okay.
line. And then on to Tarun, I did want to tell him, even though international students can get jobs in the next 2 years also, companies will not be accepting that because they have to pay 100,000 for you to get a job. So be prepared. It's not easy, but it can be done.
Hmm.
Yeah.
Yes.
Appreciate
Thank
you adding that piece.
Yes. And I just want to take note too in the chat. So Dr. E has placed her LinkedIn profile. So I know you'll have a number of invites after this session. So
Probably so.
yes, because there are several people with two questions. So and Chakwudi, did I say that correctly?
Hello, can you hear me?
Yes.
Yeah.
All right, I'll try to be a little brave and be on camera. So, hello. First and foremost, thank you all so much for this session. And sorry if there's an echo. My microphone is a little close to the speaker, but I'll try to consolidate my question. Bit of a background. I'm on a doctoral journey, currently on sabbatical, while my wife is on her doctoral journey, wrapping up prayerfully in a year from now. I have dabbled in information security and information technology in my very nonlinear career, K-12 education, higher education as a librarian and a faculty member as well. And at the moment, I'm a part-time researcher, part-time UX designer. I'll just kind of generalize that statement, and also a adjunct. So when it comes to IT, I'm really trying to make sure that if I decide at some point in my nonlinear career to fully jump into it, because I'm partially in it right now in GovTech through a small veteran disabled owned business, What are your viewpoints on the PMP, for example? I know someone earlier mentioned other CISO related certifications. And then, of course, there are numerous trade schools, higher education programs, undergrad, grad that have program management or project management, but not necessarily IT focused. But just curious as to like the value of that right now with, as you ladies discussed briefly, the evolution, revolution, what have you of AI. Thank you for your time.
Okay.
Well, I have certifications, so I can say that they have been of benefit. Sometimes it's seeing your name and the letters that make somebody take a second look. So that is fact, right? That is definitely fact. And then it's up to the person with those names, those letters behind their name to come speak and show them that all of those letters mean something because here's what I can offer you. Um, so like I said, I have those. I have, a couple of security certifications. I'm actually in a class now for program management, for project management rather. Um, I figure, I mean, I've been working a lot of years, and I led projects not necessarily by the processes that the project management dictates or what have you, but I've, from soup to nuts, from beginning to end, gone through that, working on one right now. I'm like, well, I think it would be very important for me to do this the right way. And so they are important, especially if one is dealing with projects and purchases that cost anything, right? Nowadays everything's in the hundreds of thousands of dollars, in some cases the millions of dollars. People want to know that you're going to get my project done on time, at or under budget.
Yes.
So having the ability to learn these things and do them in those particular ways, the way a lot of times these people who are running these organizations understand. A lot of them do understand the project management framework and the steps that go into that. But again, saving them money, bringing it in on time, and delivering what they want, it's part of that whole process. And me personally, and for hundreds of the people that I work with, PMPs are pretty decent. There's who is it besides the PMP, the people that the PMI organization? Google, I think, has a PM. Kind of take a look at that as well. I mean, people have options when it comes to that. A lot of them are the same principle. I mean, you can download the PMP guide, PMBOK, I think they call it, and take a look at the things that one would cover under that, and things are important. But yeah, I think that if you're dealing with lots of money, not a whole lot of time to get something done, and a lot of things that they want delivered, it's a good idea, in my humble opinion. I'm not endorsing, but it is my opinion.
Thank you.
Thank you so much for that.
You're welcome.
And thank you for the question.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yes, and I think we have, I think our next question is from Jessie Chen.
Yep, hello.
Hi.
Hi, so I am an undergraduate sophomore currently, but I'm hoping to study cybersecurity and get into that. And I've been talking to a lot of people, like my professors, I did some reading, specifically about regulations and compliance. And it seems like there is sort of this issue where there's so many regulations and so many compliances, it all kind of like piles up. And then you almost even have to have another business that helps you with the compliance. And it's like a big mess. And there seems to be some issues with, making sure that you follow everything correctly to the letter. And even if you follow the checklist, maybe that doesn't mean that you have real security, right? You just follow the checklist.
Check the
So
box.
I'm wondering, what do you think about those issues with compliance? Are they really as bad as, I've been reading about? Or is it a little bit better? Like compliance actually does help with security?
I love the question because, again, my beginnings, it's right there. was a lot of the risk and compliance area. And that question, the similar question has come up over the last 20 years. Because again, like government, for example, is the FISMA framework. Then there's what the Starbucks and a couple of other ones in the financial area. A lot of times, all of the, I don't know, controls, if you will, that need to be addressed cross over to all of them. There are places where they intersect. There are places where one might have a particular control that needs to be checked and secured when another one won't have that, or 2 out of the 3 may have it. Having a methodology to check yourself against, right? To check, it's like us checking our knowledge. Here's this test we're going to take, and we've learned these things. How well can we do those things that we've learned? It's the same thing with the security controls. These are the controls that we need to secure on this particular system. How are we going about securing that control, and what are we applying? And when we get to the end, have we done everything we can to make sure that that system is secured? At the end, they say, yes, you are FISMA secured, and here's your certification. You're SOBOC secured, and here's your certification. The key is ongoing. It's not the one time, it's the ongoing. And if, depending on what industry, I can't even remember which one it was, but I recall a couple of, maybe 4 or 5 years ago, someone cross industry having to address controls in all of the lists. And I'm like, oh, I am so sorry. But in the end, they did ongoing authorization after that. They did the one thing, and then regardless of when it expired, every year, because usually it was like a 3-year certification period, every year they checked those things. Every year they went through them to make sure that everything was okay, and they addressed anything. But the security itself, the posture of the organization and the culture of the organization is going to make the difference. But I firmly believe that having some kind of, I don't want to call it test, review of what you're doing, what you have, and what you need to do will and being on it. I mean, being on top of all of those mechanisms makes for a more robustly secure environment. I don't want to say compliant, right? I want to say robustly secure. That's my viewpoint, because that's how I guess I've been doing it for the last 20 years. And again, we follow, the FISMA framework with a few of the other controls in there, because we do have financial systems, we do have, other systems. So I think it's important to, if it's not required, to even just try to test yourself against it to see what you're doing. Because we can go out there and we say, oh, we got antivirus. Okay. Does it work? How do you know? So there's a lot of ways around that one. But yeah, I feel that having some checks and balances and a way to go back and see the level of security with your systems, protecting data, systems, access, whatever, is crucially important. I hope I kind of answered your question.
It's a big question. I
It's
understand.
a big question, girl.
Yeah, I can see that. It's like a baseline almost. So
You have to start
pull everyone
somewhere.
up.
And then once you go back to look, you've already established your baseline, right? The next time you have to go, you may not have to go through all these. And sometimes it's a spot check. I will say that when it comes up every so often, if we got a 3-year compliance, every year we go and check several of the controls, right? Against where we were to where we are. That also helps in the long run, but it's the thing that nobody wants to do. It's required to do, so we have to do it. And in the end, we have a more successful security program and a more secure organization.
I got it. Thank you very much. I did have more questions, but I'll save that for the LinkedIn.
Okay.
Oh, okay.
Thank you, Jesse, because we do have some more questions here in chat. Okay, and so I think it was Lewis. Is Lewis on?
Yeah, good
Yes.
evening. My name's Lewis, and I'm a freshman at Lincoln. And one of my question, I think, was answered in the chat, but I'll ask the second one. I was wondering, like, you say you work in a cybersecurity organization. Like, how do you guys handle threats, like to softwares or anything?
So I do work in a cybersecurity organization, and what I will say about working in the cybersecurity organization is that everybody's responsibility is cybersecurity, whether they do cybersecurity or not. So let me go ahead and put that plug out there. So,
Mhm.
so we have we in the CIO's office. The CIO is responsible for all technology and technology related or adjacent things for the entire agency. We have a defensive cybersecurity organization that basically does everything. That organization actually does the risk and compliance as well. But they are doing the monitoring. They are doing all of the scans. They are taking care of all of those types of things. Do you want to elaborate more on, I guess, the direction your question is coming from, and then I can probably maybe put a little bow on it.
So it's more like the defense and attack. Like, if you guys have like an attack, like how do you guys sort of defend attack or like, things like that?
Okay, so you're getting very, very technical again. So tools, tricks, and techniques, right? That's everything. So we do have a complement of an extensive complement of high level and down to the basic types of tools that organizations use. Some are just to scan and monitor. Some are to shut down, if you will. You know, it's all about again, and so we used to just be called the security operations, and it was just in the beginning because everything is at the beginning. It was just defending when it happened, right?
Okay.
Just kind of blocking something when it happened versus the ongoing scans and analysis and blocking. So it is literally it's now literally being proactive in our walls and defenses. I can't necessarily talk to how they do that,
Okay.
because
Thank you.
we're the government, we're here to protect you, right?
Yeah.
So, but but oh, there's so much I want to say. There's so much I want to say to unpack that. Um, connect with me. We can have a different conversation.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And me saying just that, so people feel free to connect with me. I know people offline that we could have, I could introduce you to have these conversations.
Yeah. Okay. I appreciate it. Thank you.
Because I have a few more years before retirement, so I want to keep my job.
Okay. Thank you. I appreciate that.
Yeah, and we want you to keep your job.
Yeah, I really, really like my job.
So this is great, and looking at this too, and I think a couple of things. I was just looking at time, and I was
Oh,
thinking
wow.
it was about 3:40, and I was like, no, it's 3:56. So I'm going, oh, I guess we need to start the wrap up, and I
Oh
see
my God.
Tamika is back on to say yes, you do need to. So let me ask this final question too. And I guess if you want to, let's say, end on recommendations that you would have around those, students, even professionals who may want to look at changing into the space of cybersecurity, what would you recommend? So you mentioned the certifications, there's the continuous learning. And I guess the question, do you also need advanced degrees beyond a bachelor's, or you You can enter in the field after the bachelor's degree. So if you can, we'll end on your parting recommendations about cybersecurity field.
So I was probably again an unlikely cybersecurity professional. I fell into it, but I will say that my undergraduate, the one class I took in security, sort of opened my eyes, and made me excited to go get my master's in the field, and then to find my way, through security. I think that the having whether you're doing it in university, which I'm a proponent of education, so I mean. But whether you're doing it in university or you're taking like outside classes just to take a class to get toward a certification, there's so many of them out there. If you're, if you're new to tech, start with the basics. Get in like the intro. Everybody takes the intro to cybersecurity class. It wasn't called that for me, but that's pretty much what I took, and it kind of went over everything. Then I moved into things that were out there in industry, that things that were happening out in the wild, if you will, and learned more about those things. And then once I got a little bit under my belt, I decided to take a chance and take for certification. Because sometimes it shouldn't be this way always, but sometimes it's them seeing those letters behind your name, looking at your resume, that will get you, called in. Because for some reason, there are some organizations that they're wanting to make sure that people have this expertise, and so they'll go look for the certifications first. I say start with the basics. Do it in class. If you want to take a couple of classes to learn a little bit more, that's great. I advocate for that, and I am a proponent of certifications, because it puts it all out there, and it kind of makes you, some of them make you do it on your feet. You're literally jumping back and forth, and you have to truly think. And those are the time and study, right? And those are the things that makes it stick. And then the next thing for you to do is find a way to an internship, a part-time job, a job that you put it to use.
Okay. Thank you very much, Dr. E. Dr. Evette Maynard-Noel. So this was a wonderful, let me give a clap, a wonderful session about cybersecurity. And I want to take this opportunity to thank our audience as well, and to know that the Tapia Conference, September 16th through the 18th in Atlanta, one of the key areas that is a focus for this year is cybersecurity. So we hope to see everyone at Tapia. Registration just opened today. So thank you very much. And I hope everyone, you have a great rest of your day. So thank you.